This video, compared to my usual, is going to be maybe a little more unstructured. I just kind of wanted to go through my reaction to the doc. There's not really sections or categories I'm talking about. I'm just talking about sort of reactions I had throughout, in case you don't have Hulu or don't plan to watch it, or just want to discuss if you have watched it. It's a holiday week, so I'm trying to take it easy and just enjoy the media I'm watching. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel, where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Zeleny. I typically cover pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. Today's a bit of a laid-back video, but I did want to cover a new documentary that I watched and that I had actually been anticipating for a while. And that documentary is called Malfunction: The Dressing Down of Janet Jackson. It's part of the same docuseries by the New York Times that made the Framing Britney Spears and Controlling Britney Spears documentary specials. And it was when I did my research for my videos covering the Britney docs that I saw that there was a Janet one coming soon. I watched it immediately as it premiered. It premiered at 9 p.m. on November 19th. I was just really curious about how they were going to cover it. So you can watch this documentary on Hulu, and I do recommend it, especially for people my age or younger, I guess, or just millennials and Gen Z who might not know a lot about Janet Jackson's career, because I definitely felt very uninformed about her career. I was a little young for when she was in her prime. I knew about the incident, the 2004 Super Bowl incident, because that incident impacted her career so much. I didn't learn much about Janet Jackson after that. The documentary does go into her career. That's part of like the first chunk of the documentary, how she came up from the Jacksons, how she sort of differentiated herself as an independent artist. She actually started out acting, which I didn't even know that. And then she went into her music career after acting. Once she started doing music, she started owning her sexuality a lot more. When she was acting, she was pretty like innocent. She was pretty young too, so she was pretty innocent and more demure. But when she started her pop career, she was pushing the boundaries of sexuality in music, wearing potentially scandalous outfits or having sexy music videos and things like that, which now when you look back, obviously they look very tame. I mean, they're still very sensual and whatever, but compared to what we see now, it's just different. Back then, WAP would actually murder the people of a heart attack, it feels like. Something they emphasized a lot in the documentary was the culture wars that were happening at the time. Something I was too young to be aware of while living through it. The 90s and the early 2000s had a lot of push for conservatism. It was like the Bush era and his supporters. It seems like the big target that conservatives had was censoring TV, and that was their big bad wolf scapegoat of the time. Basically, the TV is ruining the children. It's always about the children. Their main points were that TV was swearing too much, was too violent, and there was too much sex. And that was sort of like the big issue from conservatives. It's crazy now to think about, like, I feel like the equivalent now is how conservatives are pointing at critical race theory in 2021, and that's like their scapegoat. That's what's ruining the kids. And it's just crazy to see the whole Janet Jackson incident. So she had a very successful career before that Super Bowl incident, if you don't know for some reason about this pop culture moment. But Janet Jackson was headlining the halftime show, and she was actually performing with several other people, all men. I didn't realize there were all these people aside from Justin Timberlake. P. Diddy, Kid Rock, and Nelly were all performing, and they performed earlier than Janet, and Janet came out at the end. And then Justin Timberlake came out as a surprise guest. And then at the very end, he ripped off her bra and revealed her breast. And when you watch it back, it's literally like the way it's nothing at all. It's remarkable. They cut so fast, and like you never see it anywhere close. You see it from a pretty wide shot. By it, I mean the breast. And she also has like a decoration on it, or a piercing that obstructs a lot of it. It almost looks like it's a pasty. It's some sort of hardware, but from afar, and with the blur of TV, like it's dark, like you don't see anything. Basically, you don't even see a nipple. Like I don't see one. But this became like the breaking point and the definitive thing that conservatives could point to and say, see, like this is what we are talking about. Like this was their big evidence that TV had become sexualized and poisoning the children, all of that. It makes zero sense. But after this, Janet Jackson's career was decimated. Her album didn't do well. All of her interviews were about this. While Justin Timberlake, who was actually the person who revealed and pulled the thing wrong or whatever, his career thrived after this. It's crazy because Justin Timberlake was the villain in the Britney Spears doc, and he's the villain yet again in the Janet Jackson. And it's no surprise, like in 2021, everyone sees him as villainous for what he did to both of these women, Britney and Janet. And he's always been sort of an asshole to these people. And honestly, fuck Justin Timberlake. Like, watching these docs, I hate him so much. Like, I'm sorry to his fans. I'm sorry, but he's an asshole. And it looks like he will do anything that his managers or team tells him to do to get ahead. Like, he would do anything. And that's what makes me feel like his 2021 apology to Britney and Janet. He did make an apology post on Instagram or something. It just feels like, again, just doing what his PR team is telling him to do at the time to continue thriving. It doesn't feel genuine at all, because I feel like he would have apologized way before that. There's been so many years since. It's been over 15 years. It's been over 15 years. Like, he could have matured in that time before 2021, before the documentary put heat on him. He could have apologized. He's the villain in all of these documentaries, and he should be remembered as such. And the whole backlash to this incident, obviously with a 2021 lens, and even back then it was clear. I liked the documentary showed some clips from back then that people were saying, why is Justin not getting any backlash? Why is she being so scrutinized? Saying it was racist and sexist that she was being targeted in this way. So like, it's not like it's brand new that the backlash she received was racist and sexist. But nowadays, I think that is more of a popular opinion than back then. Back then, it was kind of the minority opinion speaking up, saying like, why is she being so scrutinized? When Justin Timberlake was responsible for most of the incident, if not all of it, it's truly depressing and frustrating, and it's sad because Janet Jackson can't get that career back. She can't undo that incident. Like, even now when people understand, I don't know if she's still putting out music. I feel like if she's not, she should try. And something I found weird about the documentary is that Janet Jackson wasn't there. I'm sure she didn't agree. She was probably asked, and I assume she didn't agree. But like, she's here. Like, it felt a little bit like, where is she? Like, it's not like she got murdered, literally. Like, and also it's not like Britney's case where she was under the conservatorship and the documentary was like trying to get to her like in a roundabout way. Janet is available. So I wish in the documentary we could have heard from Janet, and I would love to see a documentary where maybe she produces it or she tells her side in her way, but I don't know if that would ever happen. She honestly seems like a pretty private person. She seems kind of shy, kind of In interviews, she doesn't reveal too much, so it just doesn't seem like it's her thing to share. And maybe she doesn't need to. Maybe she's just like happily retired. I don't blame her if she doesn't want to go back to work. And something that was really crazy about this documentary was that they showed a quote from the New York Times that was super rude at Janet Jackson about the incident. I was like, aren't y'all producing this documentary? Like, why don't you say you're sorry or something? I wish at the end maybe they should have put like a title card that was like, we're sorry for this publication or this article we published back then. We retract the opinion said, or something, like, even if it's performative at least. It felt hypocritical yet again, which is the same thing with Britney. It's hypocritical of all these media outlets to suddenly be on her side when they played a part in tearing them down. So I thought it was interesting they showed blatantly that the New York Times was part of the problem, but it felt weird that they didn't address it as like, okay, well, we're sorry. Looking at it now, it just seems so clearly racist. The conservatives were using her as a punching bag. All the comedians, so many male comedians, obviously, making her the butt of the joke. And it's just so depressing to see, because before that, she was such a... And after, I'm sure, too, but her career and her success was such an inspiration, it seemed like, to Black women in general. Like, it was inspiring to see her owning her sexuality in an empowering and feminine way. She paved the way for the Cardis and the Megan Thee Stallion and Doja Cats and the Gagas and the Arianas that show their sexuality on full display on television, and nobody bats an eye. I mean, some conservatives on Twitter that are famous for just giving backlash to liberal things will say something, but no one cares and everyone knows that's just their job. It's just wild to see how far we've come. I mean, it's good, but it's sad because it feels like what got Janet in trouble back then today would be nothing. And that should mean that Janet Jackson should still have a thriving career now. I think she is kind of older, so I wouldn't be surprised if she is retired. But it was a great documentary. I recommend it if you are interested in pop culture history. This was such a major moment, and it's important to understand it now and see who paved the way for our artists today that we love. It's crazy because it's like we talk about cancel culture all the time now, and I feel like Janet Jackson's in that club of like first few people to be canceled, like actually canceled by today's terms. Sort of like Monica Lewinsky is, I think she's known as like the first cancellation, but Janet Jackson is there too. She's also a pioneer of like cancellation and unfair cancellation, because there is like cancellation for actual serious crimes, but she got canceled for a bullshit reason. It's just crazy what got her in trouble back then compared to now. Like, this would be nothing nowadays, and it's... I can't believe it. It also gave some good backstory about Viacom and CBS and sort of studio network dynamics that led to that Super Bowl. Basically, MTV was put in charge of producing the Super Bowl halftime show, and ever since, MTV has not been allowed to produce a halftime show. It was interesting to hear from a lot of the staff that was part of that event, and it's tragic a little bit for them. Not as tragic as for Janet, but all those people that were in charge were fired. They were not hired again. And it's silly because it was such a small mistake. It was a tiny accident that, like, I feel like no one would have noticed if, I don't know, it's just one of those things that just blows up for no reason. It's fascinating but sad to watch. Also, when I was seeing Janet Jackson, this is my manifesting Halle Bailey playing her in a biopic of some kind. I feel like Halle Bailey has all the skills to be Janet, and she could, with proper like hair and makeup, like look like her, and I feel like she'd be the best choice for a biopic. Nobody asked, but I was like, Who would play Janet in a biopic? I think Halle Bailey would be great. I haven't seen her in Little Mermaid, so we'll see how good she is at acting, but I'm sure she's great. Also, oh my god. So the big executive at CBS was one of the biggest, like, attackers of Janet Jackson and, like, trying to find who was responsible for this and firing people and taking the blame off of CBS. He was one of the most adamant against Janet. In the whole Me Too wave of 2019, he got Me Too'd, and he had been assaulting a bunch of staff and got dishonorably removed as the chairman. Fuck that guy. His name was Les. Fuck Les. It's always like this. Like, every time I saw those crusty senators talking about the TV being too violent, ruining the children, I just feel like they're behind closed doors. They're like the worst people, and they're like projecting all of their nastiness onto everyone else. That's just my feeling. It's not based in fact, except for Les, who did get called out. But I just feel like it's a pattern, and I don't trust any of these crusty ass guys. But I'm glad at least more people are acknowledging that Janet Jackson was unjustly persecuted and punished for this, canceled if you will, when Justin Timberlake was, and this is kind of the note that the documentary ends on, and how when Justin Timberlake was headlining the Super Bowl, which is complete bullshit, of course, hashtag Janet Appreciation Day was trending on Twitter. There's more awareness about how wrong all of that was. And that's like the only silver lining to all this, but it doesn't do much. What's done is done. Something interesting, a conspiracy moment. This is a conspiracy moment. The stadium that the Super Bowl happened that year was in Houston, Texas. It seems like this stadium is cursed because it was also the location of Astroworld this year. It's kind of a little bit creepy. So that's all I have about my thoughts about the Janet Jackson documentary called Malfunction, the dressing down of Janet Jackson, about her career and the incident of the 2004 Super Bowl. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. If you watched the documentary, I would love to know your thoughts. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos twice a week about pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. And you can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.